Welcome to The Problematic Gaze with me, Dave Moore.
And me, Dr. Lee Arnott. How are you, Dave?
Really good. Been gardening. Extreme gardening, I call it. Aching from every orifice. Is that the right word?
I don't think it is when it comes to gardening, but I'm going to go with extreme gardening because the weather's been so terrible.
Yeah, aching from every muscle and oozing from every orifice, but that's a different matter. Yeah, the weather's been, we've had torrential thunderstorms in July,
Yes,
but
yeah.
it's supposed to be looking up.
I saw a map. I saw a map of Europe, whole of Europe, including Norway and Sweden and Switzerland, is red and orange at the moment, apart from Britain, which was grey. It's literally Brexit. Brexit in a nutshell.
It's Brexit, isn't it? Even Keir Starmer and the Labour Party can't seem to sort that out. I knew there was shit. I knew they shouldn't have got in.
Yeah, I'm writing a letter to my MP of complaint, actually.
Yeah.
Not good enough.
And okay, so another thing that we have to commiserate about is the football. Now, I know we have very, very differing views on the football. My view is obviously commiserations, England. Spanish were the better team at the end of the day, but well done for getting to the finals. I like football, and I don't support a British team or a European team. I literally come out for the Euros and the World Cup. I just like the sense of theatre it provides through the nation. It kind of lifts everyone's mood a little, and it's just a sense of storytelling involved in each match. I like the way it kind of bonds everyone together, and I know not everyone's the same. Some people can go down to the pub and have a couple of pints, cheer them along, commiserate when they lose, go home, get on with your life. But there are a few people who like to have 10 pints, have a few grams of coke, go and start a fight in the middle of the street afterwards, you know. So there's a whole range of audience members, shall we say. So that's why I like it. So what's your view?
Well, I mean, you say that it brings the nation together, but let's not forget that half of the population did not watch the football. It's this whole thing about, oh, we're all together. It's like the royal family, you know, we all support them. No, we all don't. I guess my issue with football is what you were talking about, you know, some fans, and I'm stressing not every fan, will get drunk and take coke and get fight and stuff. But I think football has a real problem with toxic masculinity. The men's game in a way that the women's game does not. And the sad fact is that if you have a predominantly male environment, which the men's game supporters usually are, then there's a certain type of man who feels the need to assert his masculinity, either through displays of violence or homophobia or racism or misogyny. And I couldn't help but think about women who suffer when England lost, because the uncomfortable fact is that domestic abuse spikes 26% when England plays, 38% if they lose, and 11% the day after a match, win or lose. I think that's intrinsically wrong. And I don't think that as a gay man, it's particularly inviting or welcoming when I hear homophobic chants, when I hear racist chants. It just leaves me cold, and I just feel very far removed from it. Also, I just find it deeply boring, David. I don't get your sense of theatre or spectacle. It's just people chasing a ball around for an hour and a half with the occasional goal that you might get lucky. And that's it. So, but for me, until it detoxifies itself, and I have a very, very good friend, she works at the FA, and she was instrumental in the Kick Out Racism campaign. And she has been trying to get a similar campaign for homophobia kicked out, but it's just pushed back all the time. And there's only one openly gay football player in this country. And think about what happened to Justin Fashanu, the last openly gay footballer. You know, he was hounded and committed suicide.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not the beautiful game. I find it a very ugly game. And yeah, commiserations. I'm sorry if you support them and they lost, but I couldn't help but thinking of all the shit that some women and families, you know, there are some schools where teachers are taught to look out in their kids for signs of physical abuse the day after a match, because a certain type of man is going to go home and kick the shit out of his wife and family. So it's not a beautiful game, in my opinion. So there we are. We're from different sides of the divide. So
we are, and
there
that's
we are.
Okay.
Yes, of course it is. In other news, on a happier note, a film I made with the Imperial War Museum, which looks at the recent history of LGBTQ personnel in the army has just dropped onto their YouTube channel. And if you'd like to see me in the wild doing my history thing, then I'm sure we'll add a link to that in the show notes, hopefully.
You mean you've been doing things without me?
Yes, I have, David.
Okay, moving swiftly on.
Sometimes, listener, it gets very baby Jane around here, and I'm not quite sure how to handle it. I'm ending this call. Goodbye.
And just before we move on,
yes,
very quickly,
crash on.
No, I'm very pleased for you, Lee. That's fantastic news, and I've seen the video. It's great. We'll post it on our socials for everyone to see. But a fantastic achievement. Well done. But moving on. Back to me.
Yes.
If you want to follow us on our socials, we're on Twitter and X and Instagram at Podcast Gaze, Gaze, and we're on Facebook and YouTube.
Now, David, I can see you like a hen in a hot girdle. Do you want to tell the listeners what we are discussing this week?
I'm not sure if I can. I've broken out into a little cold sweat of excitement.
He's clutching his pearls. Not a euphemism. Actually, it is a euphemism. Sweaty top lip. Here we come.
Yes, we're going to be talking about Madonna this week, in particular, Justify My Love, her video from 1990. So without further ado, let's go. So, Justify My Love is a song by Madonna. The song was written by Lenny Kravitz and Ingrid Chavez, with additional lyrics by Madonna. It was also produced by Kravitz and Andre Betts, and it was the lead single from the album on November 6, 1990, The Immaculate Collection, which was a greatest hits package.
Yeah. And now, full disclosure, you are a huge Madonna fan, aren't you, David?
Yes.
I'm a Madonna fan, but not as much of a Madonna fan as David is. So what's your relationship with this song? Do you remember the first time you saw it, heard it?
I did. I remember hearing it on the radio for the first time and thinking, God, this is a bit weird. This is a bit strange because, as a Madonna fan, you're kind of always wanting,
needing and waiting
for her to release pop music in a similar vein to what she's done before, because that's what you know and love. But then you have to expect with Madonna that she'll always go left field. She'll always hit you with something that you weren't expecting. So it kind of takes a few listens for you to get into it. And it's not one of my go-to songs for Madonna, but obviously I love it all the same.
Yes. I mean, I remember first hearing it because obviously it was controversial in Britain before we'd even seen or heard it, because it had created a storm in America, as we will discuss. And I remember there was a special screening of it on Channel 4, I think, because everywhere else had banned it already. I remember watching it and everybody being like, that was a bit racy, wasn't it? Now, one thing I remember when this song came out is that Margaret Thatcher had just resigned.
Oh.
Which was huge.
Yes, do you remember getting into the car and she was all tearful, wasn't she?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to say Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, but that was very much from a working class Labour supporting family. And I was living with my granddad at the time, and we were watching the news, and suddenly they said, and Margaret Thatcher has resigned. I just remember my granddad, teeth nearly dropping out as he swung his head around to look at me, and we couldn't believe it. She'd been Prime Minister since I was 6, you were 7. And it was really like all you knew, and it was like, oh my God, because of course earlier in the summer there'd been those huge poll tax riots.
Yeah.
And I remember when my parents got the poll tax bill, they were furious because they just wouldn't be able to afford it. And I think that was the beginning of the end of her downfall, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I remember in the Commons, who was that guy who just kind of gave his killer speech?
Yeah, was it?
I remember who it was.
God, I can't remember either.
Well, that was in the days where politics was kind of like, politicians were kind of like...
serious,
but also all the male politicians were kind of like just generic.
Yes.
And then there was Margaret Thatcher at the top.
Was it Geoffrey Howe, I think, who did that speech? Anyway.
God, we're so uneducated, aren't we?
I know.
That's fine. I hope you've learned something, dear listener. Before we go any further, I just want to say congratulations to my good friend Lee, whose knee I'm patting right now.
Yes.
Lee graduated from Birkbeck University this week with a doctorate.
With my doctorate.
In history.
Hooray.
Yes.
Contemporary history, so I should know who was the speaker in that.
Yeah, but you can't know everything. You're not a robot.
No, I'm not a robot.
We weren't there in person, but actually there was a kind of a live stream of Dr. Lee
Dr. Lee
Arnott
Arnott.
getting his doctorate and getting his honorary cape put on.
Yes.
Sashaying across the
floor.
hall.
Yes.
Yeah. Really, really proud moment that, you know, for anybody who does a doctorate. I can't imagine the amount of work goes into it, but it's a culmination of 5 years of hard work for you, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and also it adds a legitimacy to this podcast because at least one of us kind of knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. And if anyone has got a job, then please let me know by getting in touch with us any way you like. Thank you.
Yes. Now the hard work really begins.
Yes,
I suppose.
really does.
All right, what we're doing, we're looking at news. Yeah, so we've done Margaret Thatcher. First McDonald's opens in Moscow.
Gosh. Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, let's move on from that then. Obviously you're not interested.
Nelson Mandela's released from prison that year.
Yeah. We've touched on it very briefly, but it says here on March the 9th, 1990, police seal off Brixton in South London after another night of protests against the poll tax.
I mean, those poll tax riots were huge in Trafalgar Square. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember seeing it on the news, you know, the mounted policemen, etc. I mean, we don't protest like that anymore. I mean, not like I'm saying we should like use violent protest, but I just feel as though that was, I don't know what's happened these days.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, we've kind of gone into this
general malaise of apathy and acceptance that this is what happens to us and we should just get used to it. I mean, I've been on a few marches in my time, and I just think since COVID as well, it just seems to have, I don't know what the general attitude of public is.
My mother always said we should be more French and they just get out and protest about everything, don't they? Yeah, and she's not wrong.
I remember I was went on a protest march when I lived in Paris against Le Pen.
Right.
You know, the far right fascist. And it was just amazing, this march. I mean, there was people from all walks of life, all united against Le Pen. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we're digressing.
Yeah. 1990, important year for the internet.
Oh, was it?
Because in autumn, Tim Berners-Lee creates the first web server and the foundation of the World Wide Web. Little did we know where that was going to lead us.
It all started to fall down, wasn't it? Mind you, we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
We wouldn't, actually. And also Saddam Hussein annexes Kuwait, which will eventually lead to the Gulf War the following year.
Yes.
There's lots of big international stuff this year going on, isn't there?
I mean, I remember going to get fitted for a gas mask.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, because you went? Because you were in Saudi Arabia?
Well, no, we were in Bahrain at the time.
Right.
And I didn't live there, but I went there for some holiday. The war was imminent and about to kick off, so me and mum and dad and sister all went to the British Embassy in Bahrain and got fitted for a gas mask because then they were worried about the Scud missiles and the chemical warfare, etc. And then I went home and I vividly remember the Gulf War starting because I was listening to it on the radio about midnight in my bedroom in England and hearing the bombing of Baghdad. And then my dad stayed out in Bahrain and he had to build a little bomb shelter and chemical weapons shelter in his house. And he said he could hear the Scuds coming over and everything. Wow. I mean, being fitted for a gas mask is not something you do every day, really.
No, not really. Let's have a look at the telly.
All right, then.
So it was on the telly because there's a lot of big new shows start in 1990. Two big comedies, One Foot in the Grave, Waiting for God. Both start in 1990. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, Keeping Up Appearances.
Yes.
That ran from 1990 to 1995. I love that. I mean, I kind of watched it, half loving it and half thinking, God, this is a bit naff.
Yeah.
But she just held it all together.
Yes, she did.
She was just amazing. Future Outledge.
Yes. Indomitable. Oranges on the Only Fruit. Did you see that?
I didn't see it at the time.
I remember it causing quite a fuss. And obviously with the lesbianism in it.
Yeah.
Again, it just, and we'll talk about in this episode, you know, that lesbianism, the representations of it are, if they're not salacious in porn or films, you know, if it's just presented naturally, then they're so controversial, isn't it?
Well, I mean, this is what we're talking about with Madonna's Justify My Love video. This is the climate that it came out in.
Yeah. Have I got news for you? Starts in 1990. Still giving it
very strong.
Twin Peaks.
So did I. I just got really involved in that.
Me too.
I read Laura Palmer's Secret Diary and everything.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I loved it. I remember getting really freaked out by it a couple of times. Killer Bob still absolutely haunts my
absolutely. I was in the bed.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's just the mention of it is horrible.
It was so freaky. I mean, David Lynch just managed to create this whole style of storytelling, which was just so unnerving and so freaky.
Yeah. And speaking of like Killer Bob, that's Mr. Bean. It's a nice segue.
In a similar vein, on a tangent.
Yeah, on a
still
tangent.
Equally quite creepy. Baywatch. Well, it debuted in 1989, but I think came to England in 1990. Yes, I remember watching obviously everybody was watching it for the boobs bouncing up and down the beach, but
Obviously,
we weren't, were we?
No, not at all. We were watching for the boys.
Watched it for the boys.
Stars in Their Eyes begins in 1990. Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be Cilla Black.
Although it was Leslie then, wasn't it?
Of course it was.
Crowther.
Yeah, first series was Leslie Crowther.
Yeah.
Who we discovered yesterday was at Phil Lynnett's wedding.
Oh, yes.
Randomly.
Yes,
Thin Lizzy, singer, random picture because he married Leslie Crowther's daughter.
Yeah.
Oh, the small world of showbiz, listeners. The small world of showbiz. The Crystal Maze begins on Channel 4.
Many an hour wasted watching that.
Obviously. Vic Reeves' Big Night Out begins. I didn't understand it. I was too busy watching Keeping Appearances. I didn't really get it.
I didn't get it. I didn't really get Vic Reeves at the time.
No,
but
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Shooting Stars. I kind of entered into that Shooting Stars era, really. But I just remember it being at school, and if you were like, all the cool kids used to watch.
Yes.
Or indie kids.
Yes,
they used to
the
listen to
indie
Cure
kids. Yeah.
And watch Vic and Bob's Big Night Out.
I remember going to an audition for my first degree, a drama degree.
Yeah.
And we had to do a little bit to introduce ourselves, and somebody did the I've fallen thing, and all the cool kids who were watching, the years above watching, thought it was hilarious. Right. So I just had to show them a homemade Karen Carpenter patch on the back of my jeans to pull the rug out from under that one. Didn't work. The Word, let's not forget The Word. Late night, Friday night, you'd come back from the pub, and The Word, the carnage on TV that was The Word, would be... My granddad really got into The Word, who I was living with at the time.
I really used to tune into The Word as well.
And he also loved Julian Clary.
Did he?
Yeah, he
Your
did.
Uncle?
My granddad.
Oh, your granddad.
When he first saw him, he was like, oh, that fucking puff on the telly, you know. But then grew to love him. Absolutely came converted.
So before we move on to Justify My Love, we need to look at the official charts, week commencing 18th of November, to see what else was in the charts when Justify My Love landed. Okay.
What's number one? Oh. Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. That was in Ghost, wasn't it? Ghost had just come out. That was the pottery scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mind Unchained Melody, really. When Robinson and Jerome covered it a bit later, it got a little bit overkill. But
yeah. It hung around for ages, but Ghost was a great film.
Yeah.
Very much of its time.
Yeah. Don't worry, number two. Don't worry, Kim Appleby.
Oh, because Mel had died not long before, hadn't she?
That
Mel
doesn't
and
seem
Kim.
like that long ago.
No.
I'm surprised that was so early in 1990.
Look at that top 10. Number 3, Ice Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice.
Yeah. Who later went on to have a little dance with Madonna.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Oh, number 4. Number 4.
Hey, this is from your neck of the woods.
It is from my neck of the woods. We have Gaza and Lindisfarne with Fog on the Tane is all Maine, all Maine. I bet you used
to kind of like do a little conga around your little cul-de-sac to that, didn't you? With your
mortified by that song. And didn't know anybody in my family who looked at that song and did not go, what the fuck is happening?
Oh, don't give me that.
I've got the 12
on a loop. Yeah. In your house. EMF number 5, Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Black Box. So some of the names there: Black Box, Fantasy, Jimmy Somerville, Beautiful South. They're on the top 10.
A Little Time, Beautiful South. Oh, talk of Twin Peaks, Falling by Julie Cruz.
Oh, that's going up the charts, isn't it?
Yeah. That was great. I mean, I used to listen to that Twin Peaks soundtrack.
Yes. Yeah.
I've listened to it recently, actually. Step Back in Time, Kylie Minogue.
Loved that one. That was when suddenly Kylie had got cool that year, hadn't she?
Timeless, yeah.
Well, Kylie was always cool, but she'd stopped being a naff, innocent girl and had suddenly discovered disco and started to dress really well.
And then I'm scrolling down, it's just some more just kind of also arounds here, really. I'm Your Baby Tonight, Whitney Houston. I just didn't kind of like that era of Whitney.
I loved that Whitney. I didn't like the early...
This is just before the Bodyguard, isn't it?
Yes.
Hits.
Yeah.
So this is just before she just takes it right to the next level.
Yeah. So, Dave, what happens in this video, Madonna, Justify My Love?
So, let me just give you a brief outline of where and how. So, the music video for Justify My Love was filmed within 3 days in November 1990 at the Royal Monceau Hotel in Paris, France. But basically, what the director wanted, John Baptiste Mondino, was to have everybody locked away for 2 or 3 days. They hired out the whole floor of this hotel, and then they were just going to film everything that happened. So basically what happens is Madonna arrives in the corridor of the hotel looking kind of tired and shattered and browbeaten, then kind of engages in a series of sexual escapades with various people gathered in the hotel corridor, meets supposedly her lover, subjects her lover to various kind of sexual practices with other people, and then leaves the hotel corridor at the end of the video, happy,
Laughing.
fulfilled,
Yeah.
feeling naughty,
Yeah.
re-energized.
Yeah.
And that's basically the kind of premise of the video.
Yeah.
So tell us a few little instances that happened in the video.
Well, I mean, there are instances of lesbianism. There are instances of bisexuality. There are instances of threesomes. There's some light S&M, some light bondage. There's some hints of it. I was quite surprised, not surprised, but quite struck by actually how coy a lot of it is and seems relatively tame.
Yeah.
But there are some bits which are actually incredibly suggestive and I think really kind of push a boundary. There's one shot where a topless woman who's got two braces covering her nipples reaches her hand down Tony Ward's body and goes on his crotch, basically. Yeah. And that was like, wow.
So there were it was quite voyeuristic, wasn't it? It was it was kind of, they were subjecting this model Tony Ward to watch scenarios, and then I think it's kind of like the camera lens invited us in to be feel as though like we were being voyeuristic as well.
But what I really liked was that, unlike the page 3 discussion we had last episode, there really wasn't a sense of the male gaze with this video. It wasn't being done only to look at women's bodies, and it wasn't just women's bodies which were being looked at. And I thought that was really kind of powerful, in that you got the sense that actually within this world, Madonna is in charge in a way that, even though they had a certain degree of power and agency, the page 3 girls didn't have the same kind of editorial control.
It felt very much as though Madonna was inviting you to look at her.
Yes, exactly.
It was giving you permission to look at her.
Yeah.
And then there were elements of cross-dressing,
drag,
both male to female and female to male. Drag. But like you said, I don't want to draw a conclusion too early, but I did watch it through modern eyes. We watched it together this morning, didn't we? And thought, this is really tame.
Yes. Yeah.
There's, like you said, it was just all the power of suggestion about what could happen when the camera stopped or the camera cut away to something. It's like it all felt like an initiation of what was about to happen. There was obviously no visual elements of kind of penetration or, there was one element where Tony Ward was on top of Madonna, and it felt as though it felt as though he was possibly thrusting. But it felt as though it was the camera moving backwards and forwards that was kind of insinuating that rather than it actually happening. So it was really kind of clever filmic style. But there was never, there was the shots of Madonna's bum.
Looking great in that really gorgeous underwear,
I think this is kind of like the peak of her beauty.
Yes.
I'm not saying that she declined. No. But she's always been beautiful. But it's just...
This is
such
one
kind
stage.
Of like Bridget Bardot-ish,
Marilyn Monroe,
beauty to her.
But it speaks of the time. You'll be watching it with modern eyes, but then thinking about the contemporary audience and the fuss it caused. That, all right, she's flirted with sexuality before. Express yourself. Vogue is not really about sex, but there are some images in it. But this was the kind of a first kind of overt. Playing with sexuality, bringing sexuality into conversation, and people just lost their fucking minds, didn't they? It was, we have this conservatism in America, which has really been pushing, especially since the 80s with Reaganism, has been pushing the family, has been pushing heteronormativity. The AIDS crisis has kind of really reinforced a lot of puritanical ideas about sex and sexuality, and she's seen as a threat to the family. She's seen as a threat to society itself with this video, that, as we say, looks incredibly tame for us, but was really, really, really cutting edge. And as she rightly says, you can see violence, you can see degradation, but you're not allowed to look at sex in an open and honest way,
Yeah, Lee's talking about this. It's on YouTube. We'll post it on our socials. It's an ABC News Nightline interview that Madonna did with Forrest Sawyer, which was right slap bang in the centre of this Justify My Love controversy. And when MTV banned the video, and Madonna talks about, we asked the MTV if there were certain elements that they'd want us to take out to pass through the censor, and MTV said basically no, it's the whole tone of this video that we don't like and we're not going to show it. So Madonna with her business team decided to mark it as a video single, which is one of the first times that this had happened, where you could actually go to a shop and buy the video, which also added to the controversy of, people who hadn't seen the video thought this must be really racy and controversial.
And in a way it was.
Yeah.
I remember one old school friend who had just started with her boyfriend, and they'd watched it and got so turned on by it, they had to fuck each other's brains out immediately, because it was so racy. Yeah. A threat to society? Of course not, but that's how it was built. And look at the shit she will get, in the coming years, where she keeps pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And the backlash against her, which I'm sure we'll come across in another episode, but kind of begins here, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose you've got to look at it like, everybody's sexual being, aren't they? Everyone has
exactly
thoughts.
Even asexuality is a set of sexuality.
But there weren't as many outlets for it in 1990 as there are for it today. I mean, obviously we can all go on and readily type a few little words, and then any type of sexual scenario that tickles your fancy is open to you. But back then, if you wanted to watch porn, for example, you'd have to go to a sex shop and buy a VHS or order it by post.
Or if you were lucky enough to find an old porn mag when you're taking the dog across the common.
Yeah.
That was it.
I mean, it wasn't as readily available then. So for as much as we can say in today's eyes it wasn't shocking, Madonna's essentially marketing what people are terming as a pornographic video.
Absolutely.
Which is something that people wanted to access, hence why it caused such a furore and such a backlash as well of people who are more Puritan and see this as a kind of breakdown of
society itself,
moral values.
Yeah.
So I mean, she probably was considered to be quite a threat to, a lot of the right wing rags, a lot of the Christian conservative groups.
Of course.
And she just kind of put this red rag up towards them, didn't she?
Absolutely.
You can question for hours about whether that was her intention, or if she was this is just the way she wanted to artistically express herself versus commercialism. But I mean, it was such a big controversy at the time.
Yes.
But we both watched it this morning, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we both was just looking at it thinking, through modern eyes, there's nothing really that controversial about it.
No, and in fact, if anything, it's more kind of celebration. One of the things I really loved about it, and I've touched on it before, is the fact that here was a woman owning her sexuality and owning her desires. And one of the first shots of the video when she's walking through that first corridor is she slides down the wall and she opens her legs, and it's a provocative move, but she's in charge of that move, and it takes me. I couldn't help thinking about when she's crotch grabbing, and Michael Jackson was crotch grabbing all the time. No one batted an eyelid. When Madonna did it, suddenly it's a huge problem. And she's flirting with gender. But it's just a woman touching her sexual organs the way that men have done and continue to do all the time.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think there was controversy at the time about cross-dressing. That for a man to be seen dressing as a woman was seen as like the height of
gender bending,
effeminate. Something to be looked down upon and sneered at.
Yes,
it's like I mean, you're not a real man if you
don't look at page 3.
And want to experiment with, putting a skirt on or something. And similarly, like for a woman to dress as a man and draw a pencil line moustache on herself was kind of seen as almost not even taboo. It's like just something that, why would a woman want to do that?
Yes,
But I think what it is in this video, it's all playful. It's just playful experimentation. There's a particular shot where these two women are dressed as men and they're drawing moustaches on each other, and then it kind of throws to Madonna and she laughs in the background. It's kind of like saying, why are we taking this? Don't take this so seriously. It's just a bit of fun.
It's just fun. It's just, it's kind of
liberating.
Absolutely. And I love actually the end shot of her walking and laughing, and it just feels so kind of celebratory. And I just see a very, very powerful woman who knows herself and who's in control of herself and has just had a great experience, and now it's just like off in the world. You know, it's like famously at the time, you know, she's saying that sex isn't dirty, it's not, it shouldn't be swept under the carpet. They have rising teenage pregnancies. Of course, the AIDS crisis is starting to kick in, and there is this weirdness about discussing sex and actually how younger people are exposed to sex much younger now than even they were in 1990. You know, and I think, you know, now we see female pop stars all the time owning their sexuality in a way that Madonna has really blazed a trail for in this, you know, and got pilloried for it, and was absolutely the queen of sleaze, wasn't she? She was called by the British tabloids.
What a tramp it was. The headline screamed across, I think it was New York Post it was. Which then she turned around and said, do you remember she held up the picture and said, yeah, I am a tramp.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, what are you going to do?
And whereas now women are able to own their sexuality, use their sexuality, and not get slut shamed, which is what she had to deal with for the next 4 years. You know, I really enjoyed it actually. I think if anything of the things we've discussed, it's not problematic, and in fact it goes completely the other way, and it's actually something which is laudable and celebratory and should be recognised as an important benchmark in the way that women are able to own their bodies, their sexuality, conversations about sex and sexuality, and conversations about that's not just a binary man, woman, straight, gay, you know. And I think really all of that's in this video. So,
and I think not just because I'm a fan, but I just think anybody kind of can see this, you know, and can comment on this, that, you know, Madonna was once again ahead of her time.
Yeah, definitely.
She was setting the boundaries.
Definitely.
She was saying, look, this isn't really that important.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas everybody screamed against it.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. This is shameful. This is sinful, all that kind of thing. And then we jump forward 33 years and we look at it now and it's like, this isn't really that important.
No.
Stylish, artful, entertaining.
Yeah.
But the content of it isn't actually that shocking. So it is a full reversal of what we normally talk about. This is a complete kind of 180.
Switcheroo, isn't it? Yeah.
It's really interesting, actually.
I think I've got anything else to talk about.
I don't think we could just talk forever. I mean, we probably need to go for a glass of wine or a glass of sherry or something, don't we? I think we should just wrap up.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Short and sweet. Go and watch the video. We'll post a link to this Nightline video, which if you want to see Madonna justifying her
my
existence,
love.
Basically.
Yeah.
In a very eloquent and intelligent way, then please, go to this ABC Nightline interview as well.
And I mean, obviously, we did have that conversation about how we'd secretly love to have seen Cilla Black doing a cover of this song. But maybe one episode in the future, we might bring a bit of Cilla out.
Just do the first line.
I want to kiss you in Paris. There we go. Hold your hand in Rome. Okay, enough of that.
Well, that's something to haunt your nightmares for the foreseeable future, dear listener. And next week, what are we talking about, Dave?
So next week's a very special episode because it's a tribute to Cilla Black, and Lee's going to be doing several renditions of Cilla Black songs. The Wu-Tang Clan in Cilla Black, The Doors as Cilla Black, the Beatles as Cilla Black,
AC/DC, Metallica.
Particularly like your Radiohead rendition of Creep in the style of
Oh, yeah. And I'm quite good at Billie Eilish as Cilla Black as well. So look forward to that. No, we're not doing that, are we, David? We're not doing that. What are we doing?
Oh, matron.
Is that Larry Grayson?
Shut up. No, it wasn't. It was Kenneth Williams, because next week we're going to be focusing on a Carry On film, which is Carry On Girls. So it doesn't say Carry On Matron in that film, but you get the idea. Carry On Girls. What do you know about Carry On Girls?
Well, I know it was made in 1973, so we're going back to the most important year in history again. And I think it might even be a surprisingly pro-feminist movie, despite its quite problematic trappings. But yes, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure it's going to be fun.
A feminist movie with boobs.
with boobs. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we go, let's just do this again. Let's follow us on X and Instagram at Podcast Gaze, Gaze, and you can follow us on Facebook and YouTube. So, till next time, Lee, au revoir.
Au revoir.
It's coming home. No, it's not coming home. It's not coming home. Sorry.
Not coming home. It's gone. Let it go, for God's sake.